Okay, let's go over kernel version 5.13. There's not a huge commit, but it's still some really cool little tidbits that you should know about in this kernel release. Linus just gave the go-ahead just a couple days back to go ahead and publish it, so I'll start hitting a lot of you Arch users and rolling release people probably in the next week or two. The biggest thing out of here is the Apple M1 starts to see a little support, albeit there is no support for its GPU or GPU acceleration yet. So, this is kind of, at least they're making progress on it, and maybe on the Apple M1 we can test out some cool stuff with Linux coming up soon. The second biggest thing is the release of the landlocked Linux support. This is kind of like SE Linux or AppArmor, and I'm curious to see how it does. But I was never really satisfied with SE Linux or AppArmor because they use profiles and it can be pretty tedious to deal with. So I'm curious to see how landlocked Linux security module does it instead, or maybe it pairs well with them. We'll see how it goes, but I am looking forward to it because this is probably one of the biggest features of a lot of Linux boxes that very few people use except in the enterprise space. Next up after that is going to be Intel graphics support for Alder Lake. They're just kind of blowing through this, nothing too crazy of note. There's also a lot of other drivers on here that they're just kind of expanding out and building, much of like Realtek, generic USB display drivers, and just general performance and things here. The one thing I'm not seeing quite here is any better FS performance enhancements, because usually every release has those, but I know 5.14 does have those, so be looking for that in the next couple months. Other notable things is AMD's FreeSync. This is now having HDMI support. I don't know how beneficial this is for most, because if you're using FreeSync, typically you should be using a DisplayPort anyways. But for you HDMI users out there, yes, you now have FreeSync on HDMI support, which is pretty awesome. And then finally, the Intel cooling driver and downclocking of CPU temperatures. This is a big thing for laptop users. I just did a video on the main channel going over that. I'll put a link up here extending out like your laptop battery to like 12 hours. I don't know how well this driver will do. It's a welcome change, mind you, but I still would use that. And let me pull that up for you just so you can see this video and kind of what I did with it. So in that video, I actually go over the auto CPU frequency. This is a GitHub project that downclocks the frequency for you. So if you're an AMD user watching this, you probably don't care about the 5.13 commit, but definitely check out this CPU frequency, because I was able to extend my laptop battery probably double, triple what it normally would have been. And that's not even trying. Once partnering TLP and other things with it, you can get well into the double digits in the hours for what you can do on your Linux and laptops. Now, if you want the full list here, I definitely head over to Phoronix. Here's the huge list of different odds and ends. I just kind of want to hit the high level stuff. Nothing of real note in here. I just kind of hit the high stuff that most people care about. But pretty cool to see this. If you ever want to really deep dive into it, Phoronix does a good job of kind of following those kernel commits and breaking it down for us. So with that said, are you looking forward to any of these things you saw in the Linux kernel? Me personally, I'm looking forward to 5.14, some more better FS improvements, and probably a little bit bigger commit than what we saw in 5.13, but we'll have to see what actually gets in the actual official RC release when that comes out. Probably in the next couple months, we should see probably a stable release of that, because they're moving pretty quick in the Linux realm. But again, with all that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments section, and I'll see you in the next one.